I mean, where we sit right now, they're 5-0, the only undefeated team in the AFC, and one of two undefeated teams in the NFL with the Vikings. And I think what's really surprising to me is, like you mentioned, essentially like how they've done it, how they've gotten to 5, pretty working almost. And so here's my question for you, Dirk. Is it sustainable?
Amateur Hour. Jeez, podcast. Amateur Hour. Jeez, podcast. Amateur Hour podcast on KC Sports Network. Amateur on KC Sports Network. Hour on KC Sports Network. Podcast on KC Sports Net. We're gonna talk Chiefs football for you, and you, and you, and you.
What is this, amateur hour?
Yeah, I ain't no Superman businessman like you. You know, I'm just an
amateur,
I suppose.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show is called Amateur Hour. I'm Brian Scott Hall, and joining me today, this guy loved big man touchdowns before it was cool, all the way back to the Bleeds of Bureau de Hario, is Dirkness.
Supple-rooski.
Dude, oh, no. Who was it? What was the word that they said? My God.
I don't even remember. It was off of Fumble-rooski, but I don't even remember. It was bizarre.
It was some kind of rooski, and it was bad. I can't remember who said it on the broadcast. Probably Joe Buck, right? Do you think Troy Aikman has a rooski in him?
He was around in the 80s. But time for the Fumble-rooski there. But yeah, you mentioned the fat man touchdown. Does anything bring football people together more than a fat guy running with the football? I mean, even Chiefs fans, after an interception at the 1 yard line with all the other red zone struggles already in the game, and yet, it was our former guy, Colin Saunders. But everybody's just like, man, look at that fat guy run. He's fast. He's faster than Al Big. That's amazing. It's amazing, man. And everybody chiming in. Tom Brady chiming in with a tweet. Look at that fat guy running the football.
I was actually thinking about maybe doing a breakdown of that play in like an R22, not all 22, but R amateur 22, because I've got some thoughts on that particular play. It was a wonderful time. Here's where the Rooski came from, Dirk, and I can't believe we both forgot. It was Andy Reid.
Well, yeah.
On the commercial, the Bungalooski.
Yeah.
I was having the hardest time. I was like, where does this Rooski reference that Dirk is making? Yeah. Supple-rooski. Supple-rooski. I'm caught in a loop. All right, Dirk. Listen, man. The Kansas City Chiefs, they pulled out another one. They're 5-0. Listening to a couple things, I took a walk after work, and I heard two different takes on this walk. One of them came from Colin Cowherd, and he's like, their running backs hurt and their receivers are hurt, and they're working out these new offensive linemen, and it doesn't matter. Everybody else, you got an excuse. Oh, well, I don't know. This guy, they don't have this player out there this week. That makes up that's okay that they lost. And the Chiefs just keep rolling. He said, so it doesn't matter about any of these guys. And yet, on the other hand, I heard Dominique Foxworth say they don't have tackles and they don't have a running back and they don't have receivers. And he's not saying it in a good way. He's like, I don't know how it is that they're doing this, how they keep winning. I'm hearing all these conversations. No one seems to know what to make of the Chiefs, who they are. And really all we know is that they're 5-0 entering the bye week. I guess with all that being said, man, like who is this team? What are you thinking? How you feeling here at 5-0?
Well, feeling great first off. But yeah, I thought it was funny after the game. So there's all these like weird stats that come off. I kind of wanted to start there because you think back, you harken back to like 2018, 2019 when this iteration of the Chiefs gets going, and remember all the records that we had. Every single week we're coming on here, we want to win these games, but we also got to protect our records. We had the Mahomes touchdown passes and the scoring 20 points every game. We're scoring 26 points every game. We just had these streaks where we're just shattering everything in NFL history. And it was like kind of going along with the team. Like, not only are we winning and, Mahomes is great, but we're, breaking NFL records here. And it was amazing to watch. And this team is now breaking some weird NFL records too, but it's in a different sort of way. It's like the evolution of the 2024 Chiefs. It's weird to where we've gotten. But the stats the records that they're breaking are like these weird anomalies. And so the first one, Chiefs have a 5-game winning streak every season for 12 straight years. That kind of showcases the long-term dominance here under Andy Reid, going past Patrick Mahomes under Andy Reid. The second best all-time is 7. So they're at 12 years. The second best all-time in NFL history is 7. That's the early 90s 49ers and some other team I don't have in front of me here. The Chiefs have now won 11 straight games without scoring more than 27 points, which ties an NFL record. That ties an NFL record with the 1928 and 29 Green Bay Packers. That's the style of football that the explosive Kansas City Chiefs are now playing. That's the brand of football. I don't know what's happened. We're tying records from 1928. I don't even know if the forward pass was invented at that time. But now we're setting records for not scoring 27 points. We're used to set records for scoring 26 points. And yet we still continue to win. So just a weird stat on the evolution of the team. Of course, we had the streak of 1-possession wins that was broken this week by winning by 2 scores. Wasn't happy about that, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes. We had the stats about being the 119th team to win 9 straight games, and it was the smallest win margin of all of those 119 teams. That might be gone now too. Bummer. And then the weirdest stat of all, one that I can't even wrap my mind around. The Chiefs haven't won the turnover battle in a game in 16 straight regular season games. That's just, how is that possible? I mean, we won a Super Bowl in that time period. This doesn't include playoff games where we probably won the turnover battle a few times. But still, just to have a streak like that going for a team that's not like, the winless Lions or something. It's the third longest streak in NFL history. It doesn't make any sense, and yet we're winning Super Bowls and now off to a 5-0 start in the midst of that streak. So just it's weird to see what the Chiefs have become from the explosive 2018-2019 Chiefs to where they are now, winning games, low scoring without winning the turnover battle, close games, all this weird shit going on.
And all right, so I think I kind of know why on the last stat. You said it's hard to figure out how it is that the Chiefs have gone 16 straight games without winning the turnover margin. Is that playoffs or
regular season only?
So in his past 10 regular season games, Patrick Mahomes has 12 touchdowns and 12 turnovers. The Chiefs are 7-3 in that stretch. I'm hearing, I believe according to Mina Kimes, it was that the Chiefs have the lowest margin of victory for any 5-0 team in the last 20 years. That's been, the margin of victory has been a big talking point to kind of make it sound like the Chiefs aren't good. It looks like you may have something on that.
Well, just real quick on the turnover margin, I wanted to check the playoffs last year to see what happened. They won the turnover battle against the Bills 1-0. 2 of the other games they tied. The Ravens, they actually Or no, I have this backwards. They won the turnover battle against Baltimore. They lost it against Buffalo. So they did have one game where they won the turnover battle in the playoffs last year.
Okay. I mean, listen, man, we've got a defense that doesn't turn people over very often, and we've got a quarterback that in at least 10 of those last 16 games that you were talking about losing the turnover margin, Mahomes has 12 touchdowns and 12 turnovers. It's 11 picks and 1 fumble lost, and I'm just looking at it thinking that's it right there, and it's kind of crazy because I think if anybody came out and said Mahomes is playing bad, people would be like, are you freaking kidding? Like, who is he playing with? And all of these other questions. But statistically, Mahomes is certainly in the worst stretch of his career. And I don't know how far back you need to go. You could probably just say the beginning of last season. So you're talking about the last 20, 22-ish regular season games. Because the Chiefs were the number one offense in 2022. So you don't want to go to, further back than that, I guess. But it's just been so clunky and ugly. And honestly, I feel bad for the guy a little bit because he has talked so candidly about how difficult last year was and how this year was about let's bring back the fun, and I don't know, man. I don't know how much fun he's been having so far. But I had a lot of fun last night. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I could question that up until last night. It's because it's been obviously they set out to change the course this offseason and address the issue at hand with speed at receiver or people they could trust or just adding weapons in general. Obviously, that was their number one prerogative this offseason. They did it, and yet then in 4 games later, it's already completely blown out the door with your top 2 receivers gone for the year and your top running back gone for most of the year. So obviously, that thing. But it did feel like, I don't know if it was the getting the band back together. The boys are back in town with Juju and Kareem. But I think they were clearly having fun last night and just, dismantling the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I mean, quick game recap, courtesy of our local correspondent, Vahe Gregorian. The Chiefs win 26-13. They're 5-0. They've won 11 overall, spanning back to last season. Mahomes had 331 yards. Hunt went over 100. Juju had 130, and the defense held the top scoring team in the NFL to fewer than half its average of 31.8 points per game. All felt right, really, in the world last night, except for, I guess, the red zone offense, which we can get to. But I mean, if you look at it, man, I know you said that you were keeping a list of things that the Chiefs have broken. And I definitely think we can add the Saints. Not only is Derek Carr going to miss multiple games now, but the Saints, after starting 2-0 and being the best scoring team in the league, boy, they looked like doo-doo last night. And the fact that the Chiefs won this game 26-13 and went, I believe, 2 of 7 in the red zone, as far as the touchdowns are concerned. I mean, it's it was not good. It was not good for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, we beat him up. Carr got hurt on that last, or maybe not the last throw, his last throw, I guess, but it felt like their last effort to compete in the game, really. Weird that Derek Carr, they flashed his stats early on in the game. I thought it was kind of weird. He now has a 3-15 record against the Chiefs. I mean, that seems about right. But he has now a 28 touchdown and 18 interception ratio against the Chiefs, which is oddly good for having that kind of record, having a 3-15 record. Stats don't always tell the story. You think about Mahomes having 6 touchdowns and 6 picks right now, and yet we're on top of the NFL world, and yet he has a better ratio than that and going 3-15 against the Chiefs. So I thought that was kind of weird. But yeah, I guess you could throw the Saints in there. I mean, you have to let it play out. We have to see that the Saints, show up next week. If they're starting Spencer Rattler, I think things could get really bad. I actually bet the Saints to be the worst team, to have the worst record in the NFL this year. One of my long shot bets, because I thought they might move off of Carr and go to Spencer Rattler. And then when you have a team like that with a rookie quarterback, things could just fall apart. So yeah, I could very much see the adding the Saints to that list of things that the Chiefs have broken.
After this break, we'll talk a little bit more about the game and kind of where the Chiefs are at so far this year, entering the bye week. But first, let's pay some bills.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone in any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts with you. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/AHPKC. That's mintmobile.com/AHPKC. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/AHPKC. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
If you are looking for a way to make a big impact in Kansas City, our partners this year, once again, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City, we're very happy to be working with them, but we got to spread the word, man, because they need sponsors for their sports teams and the leagues that they run. You can help local kids. You can also promote your business at the same time. So honestly, it's really great scenario there for you. You can do this in Kansas City here too, to be able to actually promote your business right where it's located. All you got to do is send an email to giving@helpkckids.org, and they've got all the information you need if you want to try to make an impact here in KC with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City.
Do you love sports? Want to share your love by coaching local youth? Our partners this year, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City, need your help today. Beyond after-school programming, the clubs offer leagues for baseball, softball, basketball, flag football, and more. Just visit helpkckids.org and click on volunteer for more information on how to help there.
Dirk, there was a quote that came across my desk on Twitter last night from Everybody Loves Roto Pats. He said, the shittier the Chiefs are, the more unstoppable they become. Your thoughts, his Dirkness.
Isn't that was perfectly said. I thought that was like my favorite tweet of the night that I saw. It is weird because they're playing such a different style. We've kind of talked about this, but they just have like the winning formula right now. Like they're just, even when things got to, 16-13 last night, like I was never sweating it for a second. I was like, well, they might be close here and maybe things get weird, but like I'm still so confident we're just beating this team up on both sides of the ball. It felt like I never really sweat it for 1 second, especially after they missed that extra point. Maybe it was a 2-point game, like things could go weird here and they kick a field goal and sneak out with a 1-point win or something. But even just when it got to 3, I was like, well, that's enough of a buffer. Like we're just going to keep them at an arm's length and we know how to win these games and we're so damn confident at it. And it's really weird because we're like this run first team on offense and, with Kareem Hunt back there now and stopping the run on defense right now, it's like this weird, like small ball control type of offense that they really kind of leaned into at the end of last year. And honestly, I think it's carrying over into this year and they're kind of perfecting it. I want to introduce success rate, which is a stat that is, what is success rate? 50% of yards to gain on first down, 70% on second, 100% on third. So it's kind of just measuring an offense like staying ahead of the chains, basically. Like, was it a good play? And this kind of goes back to Bill Walsh. It's kind of his philosophy of just like the West Coast offense. Like, the great teams don't let it get the third down to decide games. They do it before that. They have things decided before that. They do it on first and second down kind of thing. The 2024 Chiefs right now are first in overall success rate on offense. So even though they've had like their struggles on offense and things going wrong, they're constantly staying ahead of the chains. They are 4th in passing and 3rd in rushing. Whereas going back to last year, where we saw a lot of those struggles and and the team kind of questioning their identity and like, what's this offense going to be as they figured it out as the season went on. They were 12th in success rate, 8th in passing, and 26th in the run last year. So a market improvement there. And I think it just goes to kind of tell, like, we see all these stats. A lot of people have probably seen them already about like the lack of big plays, Mahomes not throwing downfield. We even have a lack of big plays on the running game. Some fun stats I can get to here in a second. But it's just interesting to see how they've kind of changed their philosophy and kind of embracing who they are on offense now. And it's really just staying ahead of the chains and controlling the clock and all these types of things. And when you're doing that type of thing with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and Andy Reid at coach and this type of defense, it's just bleeding wins. And that's how we're seeing, the team just win game after game after game here.
Okay, so here's my question. Like, they have this new style. They've kind of been forced into it because of all the explosive weapons getting injured. So, they're it's not that they aren't making these intentional choices, but these are largely adjustments to the original plan for the season. But I mean, where we sit right now, they're 5-0, the only undefeated team in the AFC, and one of two undefeated teams in the NFL with the Vikings. And I think what's really surprising to me is, like you mentioned, essentially like how they've done it, how they've gotten to 5, pretty shocking almost. And so here's my question for you, Dirk. Is it sustainable? I mean, last night we saw Juju Smith-Youngster, I don't know. I was trying all sorts of different stuff with Juju last night. The guy goes for 130 yards. I mean, here, we've got this tweet from Solak that I think kind of makes my point. Juju had his most receiving yards in 1,366 days. Kareem Hunt's first 100-yard rushing game in 1,422 days. I mean, these guys came out of nowhere. Literally, both of them were free agents when the Chiefs signed them. One of them signed in like late August, the other one in late September. And there's your leading rusher and your leading receiver. I didn't think either one of them were capable of what they did. And if you told me that the Chiefs were without Rashee Rice, without Hollywood Brown, without Isaiah Pacheco for the vast majority of the first 5 weeks, there's no way they're going to be undefeated at the bye. And they've done all of these things. And now, obviously, during the bye week, they're going to continue to make adjustments. They may even be adjusting the roster, all of this and that, and so on and so forth. But like, if this is your team, if it's Kareem Hunt is your lead rusher and Juju is your lead receiver, like, can the success continue?
I would say yes. I mean, yeah, I think they did it with less last year on offense. And they were able to make it happen. And even going back to 2022, like the offense worked a lot better than it did in 2023, obviously. But like, if you just look at the weapons by themselves, I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS are your starting receivers. McColl was probably the third guy in 2022. It's not like the personnel was great. I think Travis Kelce was probably on a different level at that point. So that helped a lot. But still, like, I almost think this is more sustainable because you're not relying on Mahomes to be Superman every week. Like, go out there and do your thing. Like, you have to score 30 points and do all this, like how we used to win. Now we're just turning around and handing it off, and it's it's creating less margin for error. Like, this is, I think, more sustainable in what they're doing. But in terms of weapons, I mean, I kind of get what you're saying with those guys. I was not expecting this from Juju Smith-Schuster whatsoever. It does merit mentioning that he is only 27, as our producer Nick points out. I was looking up other receivers just to put that in a frame of reference. He's the same age as A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman Jr., DJ Moore, and Hollywood Brown. Nobody thinks of those receivers as old, and he's the same age as them. He's actually younger than Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, and Calvin Ridley. Juju Smith-Schuster is younger than those dudes. It's just insane. But I mean, it's just coming off like the knee injury and the way they talked about it in New England last year. I just kind of figured he was done. So like, signing him, I was like, yeah, I guess that's a good, break in case of emergency. But they did get to that emergency. They had to break it. And he looks, he put up more yards than he did in any game in Kansas City in 2022. So I mean, I guess he can be like the same guy that he was that year, and he was the top receiver for us that year. So yeah, I mean, I don't see much reason for why he can't have that similar type of production as 2022.
I really didn't think he had it in him. Like you said, I kind of thought his career was over. The way they talked about him just basically not being a functional football player last year. He only had 200 and something yards overall on the season. I don't even know how active he was, but God, he looked so explosive last night, man. I mean, like the speed and the acceleration, the after the catch stuff. Like, I think I even asked you last week that it was like, if I could guarantee you 500 yards for Juju for the rest of the season, which is basically eliminating all of the yards after catch stuff that he did in 2022, would you take it? And he said, exactly. Of course I would. And I actually, yeah, not now. I'm like, oh, well,
Price is going up. Price is going up.
I heard somebody, it's probably Foxworth. He was so down on the Chiefs win. He was trying to zag. And I will say this for Dominique Foxworth. One of his primary arguments for not wanting to be super complimentary of the Chiefs is that he's like, they're doing it in like such an ugly and unconvincing way. And when you ask people like, why do you believe in the Chiefs? And they're like, look what happened last year. He's like, that just doesn't carry for me. I can't have the argument be, look what happened last year, because this is a new season. And I totally get that, except for the fact that it's the Chiefs, and that look what happened last year, that inevitability of the Chiefs. Like, that's just where people are at. Nobody wants to bet against them until they actually like really see it happen. The Chiefs win a lot more than they lose, including Super Bowls, it seems like.
And it's the trust that we have in Mahomes and Andy to kind of figure things out by December. Like you discussed like the red zone struggles. I'm not worried about the red zone offense at all. We do this every single year in the middle of the season where they go through this red zone swoon and we're like, oh man, is Andy getting too cute? Why didn't he hand it off the middle? Why don't they call traditional pass plays? Everybody has all the answers. And yet the one man who has to come up with the answers, Andy Reid, has them come December and January. I am 100% confident he'll have that figured out by that time. And then, like, throughout last year, we kept saying, like, Mahomes and Andy are going to figure it out. So if you're giving them this type of defense, like, they're going to be at this level. Like, I know it took way longer than any of us thought to get there, but they did get there because we trust one of the best coaches in NFL history and probably the best quarterback in NFL history, unless he does things around here. But you just kind of trust those guys that they'll figure it out. Like, Mahomes isn't putting up the numbers yet, and I don't think the Chiefs are really showing anything on offense yet. So once they do, it just kind of looms once again as like this powerhouse waiting to be unleashed. And I don't know if we'll really see it until it matters the most again. Like, I don't expect to see the best of this team until December or January once again.
Yeah, man. And what is jumping out to me about last night that looked different is that they actually got to start the game with a lead. I mean, they got a 10-0 before the Saints had that one big play. And, some of this is because, like, it was basically the exact opposite of the way the previous week's game started, right? We, instead of turning the ball over on our opening drive, we get to kind of force the bizarro, or maybe routine for Derek Carr, arm punt. And shout out to Brian Cook, great catch, but again, you also got roasted by Shaheed, so let's not get too cocky.
Also, you kind of saw like the Chiefs struggle like in playing the ball. Like, that was just like, Brian Cook should have been catching that like a punt. And instead he diving face first, one-handed, falling to the ground, barely staying in bounds. Like, dude, just get under it and field it like a punt. It was one of the worst passes we'll see all NFL season, and Brian Cook made it way tougher than it needed to be. But give him credit that he actually did come up with the catch. But you see these ball skills from the Chiefs defensive backs. I don't know if they don't teach this or what's going on, but they struggle in that specific aspect.
I mean, they certainly do. Trey McDuffie still without an interception, got up to I don't even know how many games and counting. But the offense on their opening drive, they go 78 yards and 10 plays. They finished with Jawan Taylor bulldozing Kareem Hunt into the end zone. and eventually they're up 10 before that one long play that felt like basically all that the Saints could muster on the night. I mean, honestly, man, like, I really liked playing against the Saints. The audio issues throughout basically, I think, the entire first 3 quarters of the game were really unbearable here in Kansas City.
3 quarters?
Yes. It suddenly, I had turned the audio off, and suddenly I checked again in the fourth quarter, and it was finally normal. But it was the vast majority of the game.
Did you play the radio, or were you just watching in silence?
No, I mean, who has a radio? Like, I can't. If I try to get on, like,
it's a radio.
If I try to like do it on my phone, I'm in Kansas City, and it's like, no, you can't. You're blacked out. So I would have to be in my car, but then I can't watch on my phone. So I'm just like, do I watch or do I listen? I can't do both at the same time.
So I drove my car into my living room, parked it.
Right?
This is what I got to do to watch.
I don't know, man. I had a lot of fun with it. And yes, thanks, Nick. I could buy a radio, but the game was already happening, and I didn't know until it was too late.
You should have made Nick go buy you a radio. Is what
exactly. Just send him a DM. Hey, I need a radio. This is part of your producer budget. I loved that there were former Chiefs and former Raiders, like, all up and down the Saints roster. We got to play against Derek Carr, which, as established, is always a good time for Kansas City Chiefs. But even Jonathan Abram was out there. I'm like, oh man, all right, John Abram is out here. Yes. And obviously, the Colin Saunders of it all, the Tyrann Mathieu of it all, the Willie Gay of it all. Is Tano Passanio still on this team? Is Dan Sorensen still here? I don't know, man. But I just thoroughly enjoyed watching the Chiefs and Saints. It felt like only yesterday that Chris Jones got to terrorize Derek Carr twice a year. And now, it's been a while. But boy, it was thrilling to play those New Orleans Saints. It just felt like a really familiar matchup, even though we only play them at Arrowhead once every 8 years.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It looks like Tano Passanio is still on the team. I'm not sure. He hasn't registered any stats or anything this year, but Wikipedia says he's on the Saints, so I don't know if he's injured or something. Familiar faces. There was another stat going around with our 2 guys off the streets, Juju and Kareem. It was the first time the Chiefs have had a 300-yard passer, 100-yard rusher, and 100-yard receiver in the same game since November 20th, 2022 versus the Chargers. I thought that was weird, especially when you go back to the time previous to that, when they had those 3 benchmarks. Not really that high. 300-yard passer, 100-yard rusher, and 100-yard receiver. You would think that happened fairly often. The time before that game in 2022 against the Chargers that happened last was the season-opening win against the Patriots in 2017 with Kareem Hunt's first game as a Chief. He might have been the rusher and receiver in that. Tyreek Hill went over on 100-yard receiving as well in that. So that was just really weird to those relatively easy benchmarks to hit in this explosive Chiefs offense that we've had. I guess the 100-yard rusher is probably holding us back more than anything there. But weird it was that long ago to hit those benchmarks, and yet we hit them with 2 guys that we signed that were both sitting on their couch like 3 weeks ago, and those are the guys that set the benchmark this time.
Yeah, I mean, really, since the Chiefs let go of Kareem Hunt, they haven't had a whole lot at running back. And don't get me wrong, they did draft one in the first round. But, no offense. Clyde obviously didn't really live up to the billing of a first-round pick. I wonder how many 100-yard rushing games the Chiefs have had since Kareem Hunt was cut. And I honestly, I would kind of love, and it would be really weirdly poetic, especially considering the fact that they won 3 Super Bowls during this stretch of games, if they just had 0 100-yard rushing games and Kareem Hunt was the last. I know that's not what happened, but it would be pretty cool.
They're just anti 100-yard rushing games. Like, no, get him out of there.
I mean, how about this? Kareem Hunt, the same number of carries as years that Juju is. 27, as you mentioned, that Juju's only 27. Kareem Hunt had 27 carries last night, Dirk. I didn't know Andy had it in him, frankly. Carson got another 5 on top of it. The Chiefs handed the ball off a lot. And how about this? How about this one, Dirk? The Chiefs managed 139 rushing yards. I don't care so much about the efficiency stats because you've got like some Mahomes kneel downs in there. 3 of them, I actually think, that skew the numbers too. But how about this? 139 rushing yards, and the longest run of the night was only 9. 0 explosive runs the entire game.
Well, I've got some fun stats on this. A little mini deep dive. I don't have the sound that nobody can hear anyways. I don't have that queued up, so don't worry about it. But we're gonna do this one.
Why is it silent before Dirk does a deep dive? What are we waiting for?
Just a 15 seconds moment of silence before a deep dive here. But no, we'll do a little deep dive here. It's a perfect lead-in because I have some fun numbers on this. How many runs over 10 yards do you think the Chiefs have from running backs on the season?
This season, I mean, probably like 2.
One.
1.
One run over 10 yards, and it's 11 yards by Isaiah Pacheco.
Man, really, like, that's how, like, sometimes my students are, where I tell them, like, this is what the expectation is. That you need to write 150 words, and they give me, like, 152 words, right? Very, very similar there.
So they have 1 11-yard. This is the longest run by running back all season from the Chiefs. So despite them being, like, kind of a run-heavy team and being really good in the run, they don't have anything over 11 yards. It's kind of incredible. They have 11 9-yard runs, and they have 10 8-yard runs. And 21 5-yard runs. So they're really just hammering that 5 to 9-yard run over and over and over. On the season, they're plus 157 in rushing yards. That's plus 279 if you exclude the Lamar Jackson game from early in the season. And yet, in every single game this season, the opposing team has had a longer run than the Chiefs have had. So, against the Saints, the Chiefs' long was 8. The Saints had a run of 9. Against the Chargers, they had a run of 10. The Chargers had a long of 12. So despite completely dominating in both aspects of the run game, on offense and defense, the other team has a longer run than the Chiefs in each game. It's really just these weird, again, back to the statistics. I'll be able to say this by the end of the podcast. Statistical anomalies of this Chiefs team, where they're this great running team, great in success rate, and yet they can't break anything longer than 11 yards. It's weird to see.
It's a mid-range jumper, man. I mean, that's what they are. They are the masters of the mid-range jumper, and it's really just handoffs, I guess. I don't really know what to make of it. I truly don't. And that's why I asked, like, do you think it's sustainable? Because I got to tell you, Dirk, I don't know that it is. I'm not super confident that, like, Kareem Hunt and Juju are the 2 guys that we're going to be able to ride through the rest of this regular season. And maybe it can be spread out a little bit more than that. But really last night, I know Kelsey had 9 grabs. I know McCole had gotten the mix a little bit. I know, a couple guys were able to move the chains. I liked Xavier Worthy's contribution, despite the fact that, like, the stats aren't huge. I think he had his highest number of targets in any game last night. It only, I think, resulted in like 3 grabs for 20-something yards. But I feel like I see them kind of figuring out exactly what he is and how to deploy him. Let me ask you this. I've been thinking a little bit about Xavier Worthy in the past week. And now that we have, like, the official diagnosis, Rasheed had surgery today. They fixed the lateral collateral ligament. I don't know. That sounds like a made up thing. The lateral collateral. At any rate,
Made it up.
They're saying that, maybe it's 4-month timeline, whatever. Like, Rashee Rice, the season is weirdly over. It sounds like maybe, I don't know. The Schefter 2-tweet fiasco from last night was absolutely breakneck. I mean,
I'm just happy I didn't see, like, the first tweet before the both tweets. Because if you see the first tweet and you'd be, like, celebrating, I'm sure lots of people were out there and see that one like, oh, fuck yeah, optimism, like, we're going to get him back. I think optimism was different for Chiefs fans and for NFL media in terms of what was going on with Rashee Rice. We were thinking maybe back this season I think NFL media was thinking like maybe this guy's going to be hurt for like the next 2.5 years or something. And that was where the optimism came from. Like, well, he should make a full recovery by next year. Like, that's not optimistic. That's what we were fearing.
Exactly.
I mean, we're Chiefs fans. Everything's going our way. So we were just like, yeah, sure. Bring him back with this made up fake knee injury. He just got a surgery on. They had to name some ligament off of what they found. That's how things are going for Chiefs.
Well, I mean, the latest on Rashee Rice, it sounds like he's definitely going to be done for the regular season. So we can now speak definitively. And this is what I've been thinking. Like, there are some questions about what Xavier Worthy's capable of both now and by the end of the season. I mean, last year, the Chiefs felt that they needed to make a move at the deadline. They brought McCole Hardman back, albeit for little to no, like, compensation. I think it was like a 7th rounder 2 or 3 years down the road. But ultimately, the answer was already in-house, and Rashee Rice blossomed into the wide receiver one that they needed. Can Worthy do that for this team? I'm not asking if he can replace Rashee Rice and the like for like. He does all the run after the catch and physical over the middle things. That's not what I'm thinking. But more in like, can he be the answer that the Chiefs need at receiver, regardless of what it looks like? Like, can he be the thing that this offense actually relies on somehow in order to be the big difference maker for them down the stretch this year? I don't know if they have the faith in him to do it. I don't know if he's got the build, if he has the skill set. I don't really know, but I wonder if they're going to maybe do all this stuff and go out and say, oh, we got to go get this player because we got to solidify the roster. And I am wondering if it's still going to be Worthy at the end of the day that does it for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't think he'll have the production as Rashee Rice, as you kind of alluded to. But I think he can provide value in other ways just with his speed. And so it might not be as seen as Rashee Rice and what he did last year, but more just like maybe him continuing to push downfield and providing that threat, whereas that's not anything that Rashee could ever really provide, like a downfield threat like that. Maybe that is enough to open things up for other guys. And honestly, I mean, I think I might just be on a Juju high right now, but I think Juju might kind of slide in and be that guy that they kind of go to. You said that other go-to guy that they kind of need. And I could see him being more productive in terms of yards and stuff than Worthy. But, you know, even Worthy was running wide open on that one play last night where Mahomes ends up either not throwing it and running, or can't remember what he does, but doesn't really throw it downfield at all. And man, he looked wide open. And maybe even a couple other plays that people are kind of identifying today in the All-22 where they had chances to kind of go at him. But they did take a couple deep shots towards him, which is encouraging. I think they know that they have to develop him at this point with the other two guys gone. And so I think they're getting there, and I'm just confident that they will have it figured out by season's end. And they'll know, like, you know, we need this guy on the field, stretching the field all game, and we're going to give him like 2 to 3 shots downfield, and that will be enough to open it up for everybody else underneath. And one more thing with Juju that I want to get in there. It shouldn't go unmentioned, you know, the comfort level that Mahomes has with them. When we looked at those receivers last year, it wasn't only the drops, but like the constant miscommunications. And one thing we kept pining for, I kept saying, like, you know, it can't just be we lost Juju and replaced him with Rashee Rice, who's basically going to put up the same yardage as Juju did. So it should be like the same level receiver. So I don't get what's going on here. And the constant pushback was, you know, the trust, the comfort level he has in Juju. And you almost kind of see that play out in real time last night where Mahomes is scrambling around and P. Ryan kind of stops and he expects him to keep going. And there's a little miscommunication there. He has Worthy open on like a little shallow drag and he kind of misses him and throws it behind him a little bit. Just not quite on the same page there. And then yet on like one of the very next plays, he hits Juju on like a shallow drag and he hits him right in stride where Juju's able to take it up and gain yards after the catch. So I don't think that should go without mentioning that there's a comfort level in having Juju on the field that him and Mahomes just seem to have had from the beginning. It's not like they had that much more time together than all these other guys, but they definitely were on the same page. And I think that's already carrying over into right now Whereas Juju's going to continue to play, be a top 3 receiver on this team, and continue to get targets and yards and produce for this team that we didn't have last year.
Yeah, I mean, look, you add the like volleyball set that Juju did in the end zone that led to the Colin Saunders interception. You add that touchdown to Juju's stat line last night, and you are a very, very happy camper. I mean, he still ended with 7 for 130. And like, even if you want to say, hey, Matthew fell down on the 50-yarder, and so it's, he didn't really earn it, whatever. Okay, take the 50-yarder off. He was still 6 for 80. Like Juju did more last night than maybe I thought he was capable of doing this entire season. And so I personally have got way more reservations than it sounds like you do. I love the fit. We know that he and Mahomes have a good rapport. We know that he's going to be in the right spots and all those different things. I just don't believe that the Juju that we saw last night, I'm not confident yet that I'm going to see that again this whole year, possibly. It could literally have just been like whatever combination of shots Juju got in the knee last night had him feeling great. And he went out and he had like a one of those like for all time performances. I actually looked through his career game log, and last night was the 5th best game Juju has ever played in terms of just sheer production. I mean, it could really truly be a throwback. Like it would be. Is it not? What's more surprising? Juju has this excellent season, or that he had one good game this year? Like I don't. That's just kind of where I'm at, and I'm not trying to yuck your yum. All right, I love a Juju, and I'm really hoping that he is that guy. Like if you get the Juju that showed up last night, broadly speaking, for the rest of the season, if you get 2022 Juju Smith-Schuster for the rest of the season, you don't even need to trade for anybody. I don't need another receiver. It's like that is enough for me, but I'm not confident that that's what we're going to get.
I would still go out there and try to add a guy. I still think you got, Justin Watson was one of the top 3 receivers out there yesterday. Didn't get a single target. So I would still try to add someone productive. It looked like they basically rolled with Worthy, Watson, and Juju as their 3 guys. So I think I would still go out there and try to add a guy, because I think you're right. You don't want to depend on him all year. And it's obvious it's going to be a group effort. I mean, it wasn't all Rashee Rice last year. He was, he kind of stepped up and filled the void for just one more guy that they needed. And so you're kind of helping. That's the kind of recipe again this year. I kind of wanted to name some dudes. I was feeling good about bringing Kareem and Juju back. And so I came up with a list of 10 dudes that maybe the 2024 Chiefs should bring back. And maybe we just throw them out there and, see what happens. And maybe they still got some in the tank, and we can keep this reunion tour going.
Can I disqualify Chiefsaholic? Because I feel like he might be on your list. Is Gary Glitter on your list? Is Chiefsaholic on there? I'm not trying to ruin the jokes, but I'm like, are they all football players?
They are all Chiefs football players from the Andy Reid era. I will say that.
All right.
No, Gary Glitter is grandfathered in. Of course he should be brought back. Oh, my God, that clip of the 90s Chiefs. Oh, God, I couldn't stop watching it. I couldn't stop then doing the U's at home. All right, here's some dudes that I wanted to bring back. Scoured. Instead of, studying the game tape and all 22 like all the other nerds do, I just studied some dudes. How about we bring back Mike Catapano? A little pass rush help. The pass rush was a little stale last night. I think we could use him off the edge. Catapano had a great start to his career and then had the weird back injury or whatever it was. I thought he I thought he could have been a guy. Could have been a dude. Maybe kick the tires. How about Hollywood and Kevin Hogan? He could maybe be our QB sneak specialist. He was a dude. How about Frankie Hammond? A little hole at punt returner right now. I'm not too impressed by McCole Hardman. Frankie Hammond. I thought that was a good throwback. Taco Charlton. Maybe have some more pass rush help there. I always love a guy named Taco. How about Nick Allegretti? This one isn't even ironic. This is just I love the guy, and I keep seeing Nick Allegretti highlights on my timeline. Sometimes, like the algorithm on Twitter, mostly it sucks, but sometimes you see Nick Allegretti highlights every single week, and that's one of the pros of this Twitter algorithm that we're seeing.
It sounds like you're following Bearcat. This is what it sounds like. He's just still hanging on. He's the Wolverine meme looking at the photo, and it's a photo of Nick Allegretti. Like,
dude, I love him. I love him. I love Allegretti. I'm glad to see he's doing well and a good offense. How about Benny Logan? Hadn't heard that name in a long time. Benny Logan, Ricky Seals-Jones. I thought maybe we played 4 tight ends on a snap last night. I thought maybe Ricky Seals-Jones could provide something. Thacarius Bo Peep Keys, the forgotten member of the Arias Nation, of course. Never got a fair shot, really. James Michael Johnson. Everybody's mad at our inside linebackers. Maybe James Michael Johnson, JMJ, could get in there. And my favorite name that I came up with, looking at old names, lists, draft classes, Daddy Nicholas. One of our dudes, Daddy Nicholas, never got a fair shot. I thought he had some pass rush to his game. Maybe bring him back. What's Daddy Nicholas up to? Somebody hit him up on Twitter.
Daddy was a moment. Like it was just such a memorable time for Amateur Hour and for the Kansas City Chiefs. The flashes that he showed, and we kept, what was it? Let Daddy cook, or free Daddy, or something like that. I mean,
I don't think we can ever come up with one great thing. We just tossed around a lot of ideas.
I wanna we got maybe 10, 15 minutes left in our show today, Dirk, and I really think that we should talk about the best defense in the NFL.
Oh,
I think we should talk about the best defense in the NFL.
We were debating that. Who else would it be? The Vikings, the Steelers?
The Vikings are, I think, a very, very difficult team to play. I don't think that they're the best defense in the NFL. I think that Brian Flores blitzes like 80% of the time. And so depending on who they're lining up against, that can be really brutal, Can
I just say the top 2 teams in the NFL, the 2 undefeated teams, the Vikings and Chiefs, maybe the 2 best defenses, got these defensive coordinators that just like to mix it up and blitz like crazy. And don't people see like there's maybe a connection there between the great defense and what they're doing? It seems that was kind of the one big takeaway from this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 guys that obviously really know their craft, and I don't mean to say that as there are other defensive coordinators that don't. But Flores feels overqualified to be a defensive coordinator, as does Spagnuolo. And in my estimation, both of those guys have the chops to be something more than that. And really, it seems like the only rung would be a head coach, right? But they're kind of stuck in that no man's land a little bit of too good for the job you have, but maybe not good enough for the job above you, potentially.
Perfect spot.
I really thought that Spagnuolo had his way with a first-time offensive coordinator. Maybe the Saints aren't quite as good as people thought. Maybe the injuries along the offensive line really ruined things for them. Guys, Kareem Hunt had more carries than Kamara had rushing yards last night, and I just spent a bunch of time talking about how good Kamara has looked so far this year. I mean, they just could not get anything going. And as mentioned, the highest scoring offense in the league entering the night, and they got held to like basically, I mean, it was like a in between a half and a third. I mean, 13 points they got last night as opposed to the 36, almost 1/3 of their typical production. And I just felt like, I didn't go back and look at everyone that the Saints had played. I know that they had like the huge explosion against Carolina. And so people are always going to, discount that the way that the Panthers are playing. Kubiak may very well be an exceptional coach, but last night it felt like it was Steve Spagnuolo against a first-time coordinator, and the results speak for themselves, man. We had twice as many yards on the night. We had twice as much time of possession on the night. And again, the Chiefs went 2 of 7 in the red zone, so it could have been an absolute bloodbath. And I was so impressed with the way that they were bottling up runs. Nick Bolton knifing into the backfield, blowing up screens. They just seemed like he was everywhere last night. Chamari Connor, maybe his best game as a professional last night. I thought that he was all over the place and wrapping guys up. No missed tackles for Chamari last night, if memory serves. They were really flying around, playing confident, and it's as if we were playing Derek Carr's Raiders, man. I mean, they really, it was Rashid Shaheed, and that's about it.
Too cold?
I saw
Too cold?
you said that I saw that tweet that like apparently Saints fans were complaining that it was chilly last night, and you said, "Oh,
a cool, crisp 69 degrees was too cold for Derek Carr."
Are you when you think about this defense? You said that the pass rush has been a little glitchy. It's basically Chris Jones and a bunch of dudes. I don't know. I mean, I'm really looking forward to adding a Minahu, but I'm looking at this defense right now, and like, dude, I've got no worries. I've got no complaints. It's been absolutely delightful watching this defense play the way that they have, and it seems like they're getting better every week. I believe that if memory serves, it's like this really small margin, but the Chiefs have actually allowed fewer yards every game defensively, and you know they're really dominant out there, man. I don't think that, apart from like the tight end stats, and even those have started to go away. I know Taysom Hill was inactive last night, but I mean, is he really a tight end? At any rate, like even those are starting to kind of go away. Like I don't know what the weakness is on this roster. And if there is a weakness on this defensive roster, I bet it's a weakness that like most NFL defenses have. It's not something that is in any way fatal. And I really think that we're looking at the best defense in the league right now.
And really, I mean, they gave us some points early in the season, which we're kind of monitoring just to see, because we had that threshold last year. We're going above 26 points or whatever, 24 points. They didn't allow it all season. And yet they've stayed under it. I was kind of using some disclaimers for it because if Likely would have scored the touchdown, and then the Bengals put up 25, which is right around that number. So they still haven't allowed like more than 26 or whatever they gave it to Green Bay last year for a huge.
I think it's 27. I believe 27 is the number.
27. Okay. And they've done that against, so far this year, the number 1 offense, the number 2 offense, the number 9, 11, and 24 offenses. The Chargers are really the only offense that wasn't putting up big numbers this year. Those are all by DVOA this season. And you really got to see Spags kind of dial it up last night. We kind of talked about Spags' shutdown mode. You know, like he doesn't like to show a whole lot against like teams that they may see again. You know, the Ravens and Bengals and Chargers all come to mind immediately. We ain't seeing the Saints again. And so he can, you know, other teams can look at the tape or whatever, but he is comfortable just going all out, and he knows what gets after Derek Carr. And man, you get to the end of that game and he is just dialing it up. And Carr's only answer to that problem that Spags is creating is just off his back foot, just lobbing him up there and hoping. And none of those prayers were really ever answered. He kept throwing to a dude from Yale. That was not working out for him. But yeah, it was a dominant defensive performance. Did you see this comment from Nick here? Nick wasn't around. Producer Nick was not around for the 2016 game. The birth of the too cold. Ironic because he played a Thursday night game against the Chiefs in December 2016 when it was like -5. As most amateur hour fans know, the birth of too cold for the Raiders. Hey, Nick was there too. I'm surprised he didn't hear me. I thought they were playing me over the loudspeaker as too cold for the Raiders. I think the whole stadium heard me screaming that night. But yeah, that was a good throwback. And really too cold. I mean, it was really more of a Derek Carr thing because Derek Carr has the stats where he can't operate in the cold whatsoever, right?
Under 40 degrees or something. Yeah. I think it's got like no winds when it's less than 40 degrees or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to the Tua stats. He was terrible when it was cold outside. And so leading up to that game, we knew it was cold and it was a big game and it was going to be too cold for the Raiders. And it really bared itself out. And it got to the point where truly, like, I think our entire section of the upper deck was chanting it along with us.
Oh man.
And this is the night, I believe? Is this the same game where Marquette King and Tyreek Hill were going back and forth and Tyreek got the second chance and took it back for a touchdown? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was that night. Pretty wild game. I think DJ also tore his Achilles that night. It was pretty rough.
Really? Oh.
I think that's the same game. I could be wrong.
First time we hung out with our Colombian brethren at the game, meeting them and everything. But yeah, great night overall. So the run defense kind of continues to be the story of this defense so far this year. So I was texting with Craig earlier today, and we all know Craig is great. So I thought we could make a new little segment called Make Amateur Hour Great Again, or for short, we can call it MAGA. Because I'm tired of feeling ashamed for what I truly believe, and I won't be silenced anymore. I want our audience to know exactly where Craig and I stand on the biggest debate facing this country right now, that Josh MAGA was an underrated player. And that's the new segment, MAGA. So I was texting with Craig about the run defense and what was going on with the run defense and why it's changed. I texted him the run defensive improvement this year. Personnel, schematic, philosophical, what's going on out here? He gave me 4 reasons for why the run defense has turned things around this year. Number 1, the Warthog doesn't suck versus the run. The Warthog snaps have gone way up this year. It seems like he was always kind of a part-time player. He's hovering around like 70% of snaps every single game this year. He's been a minch in pass rushing too. I think somebody was tweeting last night like they were shocked that he only had half a sack on the season. I was equally as shocked as I think everybody was by that. So he got up to 1.5 sacks on the season, but he's just been getting pressure, winning one-on-ones that he gets all day because Chris Jones is double-teamed every snap. He's looked great, and he's not sucking against the run this year, according to Craig. More Mike Pennell, the one-man run-stopping machine.
69!
His snaps are not that high, but he's playing like a lot of early down, run-specific downs in there, and he's just a man who cannot be moved, and so he's providing great run defense. And then we're playing more outside run-heavy teams that Spags can run against, and kind of going along with that, playing heavier personnel teams so far, teams that like to run solo runs like that. And you think about that, I kind of followed up like, the Bengals were like the one team to really spread us out. Everybody else kind of stays in like a base kind of offense, 2 tight ends, run heavy. Cincinnati kind of spread us out. They have the worst run game of all the teams we've faced so far. And they also had the most success against the Chiefs offense this year. Or maybe Baltimore at the end of the game when they were kind of in, pass heavy, spreading out, all kinds of stuff. So there is like some, they're playing more base heavy personnel teams, and they're having a lot of success against the run. And so he said they might be on the lookout for like a team spreading us out a little bit and then finding more success in the run game that way. And maybe that was a difference. But in general, the run defense, we've done the numbers a few weeks in a row now. They've never really had a good run defense under Andy Reid, and yet this year, I assume they're still second in the NFL because Baltimore was way ahead of everybody. But they are stopping the run at an elite level. You cannot run on this team right now. It's crazy to watch.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from. I love that you're still involving Craig in all matters, Kansas City Chiefs and
MAGA. Josh MAGA.
Yeah, I don't.
Josh MAGA. What?
No. Look, I actually. Who was the inside linebacker that was like only here for a year and was amazing? And I was like trying to say that he was an all-pro and then he just was gone. I want to say it's Desmond Moses, but I think that is a pass rusher and not an inside linebacker.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. I'm thinking of flashes in the pan, and MAGA, sure, underrated, but I'm really leaning into the MAGA of it all. Because I don't want to make any mistakes. Dirk, my notes, they're gone.
Empty?
I've gone through every note. The only thing that's
clip
still on my mind is the like short kind of moment there where we thought that Wanya Morris's season was over, and like, oh, here comes kind of the perfect opportunity. No one had to get benched. Kingsley gets to come in and kind of be the savior. Hey, you're all we've got, man. It's up to you now. And like 4 or 5 plays later, Wanya was back on the field.
You hate it.
I don't mean to sound disappointed because
you hated it. You
playing okay, but
admit it. You hated it. You hated it.
I was, when somebody was like, "Oh, he's back on the field," I said, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, it was weird because he got hardened up, didn't he?
I don't know. I mean, I think he gingerly walked off under his own power.
Yeah,
everyone was like really leaning into the rhetoric, like he clambered across the field. He gingerly moving, very cautiously making his way to the bench. And I'm just like, okay, we get it. He doesn't look good. It doesn't look good.
Turns out he was just winded. He was just winded. That was it.
Yeah. Before we go, are you said like just I want to repeat for the record. Zero concerns about the red zone offense for you. None whatsoever.
Zero.
Okay. There,
Bro.
I just want to say unequivocally to all of the amateurs out there, the Chiefs are really bad at scoring touchdowns in the red zone right now. They're like 30th, and I think the only two teams that were worse was Miami, and I can't remember the other. And I was like, oh, Miami. Wow, okay, so maybe it's not that bad, because Miami's got to be good in the red zone. But I believe that the Chiefs are really scraping the bottom of the barrel on this stuff. Doesn't mean that they can't improve. Doesn't mean that that's how it's going to be. But just keep an eye on it, man, because it's I hear, what, I just want to say this. I think the reason that I'm not actually actively worried, I'm just kind of, it's like a pencil behind my ear. It's there thinking about it, right?
On the radar.
It's there.
On the radar.
I think that if the Chiefs were in gotta have it, like actual gotta have it, and this is where that playoff mentality, that championship swagger of it all that the Chiefs have and have had for going on a decade at this point. I just trust them. I trust Andy. I trust Patrick, and right now, I trust Kareem Hunt. Like, I think that they can kind of be bullies and maybe do some very traditional run it forward on 3rd and goal from the 2. Like, I think they can do that stuff. Maybe Andy's not going to go to it super heavy and just be like, just show them, hey, we're going to run it right at you all the time. But I think in gotta have it situations, I trust what they have to be able to get it done. And it's a really good feeling to have. It's tough being a Chiefs fan, man. I tell you what, it's tough.
I was trying to look at last year in the playoffs, like how they did, because this was, definitely a theme of last year that they were struggling in the red zone. I can remember discussing it quite a bit, and then I don't remember it being an issue whatsoever when it got to the playoffs. Was it?
I don't think we had any issue with the playoffs.
We had the whole fumble like at the pylon, but obviously that's not really the team. It's just McCole being kind of dumb. That was a good play. It worked. So yeah, I think they have enough talent and enough guys who know how to score, and Andy Reid who knows how to draw it up. I don't buy it as a concern whatsoever until it gets there. And that's one of the things like they would hide the most. Like I feel like they're showing very little all season long with all of the short passes, all of the screen game. Like they're just not really stretching the field. Just we're gonna run it and throw short passes, and that's basically our offense right now. And they're showing as little as possible so that they can save it for later on. Classic Andy Reid shutdown mode. And red zone stuff is one of the biggest proponents of that. So I think they'll tinker with different kind of stuff, figure out what works, and have it ironed out by December. No question.
Yeah, honestly, like maybe one of the biggest diversions that Andy Reid has ever concocted is this television show that Travis Kelce's on, because everybody's probably seeing the billboards, they're seeing the commercials. They're lining up every Wednesday night to watch this show on FX, and they're just not really thinking too much about Travis Kelce on Sundays. Everybody thinks he's washed, and Andy's got him. Guys, it's a rope-a-dope. Just wait. 7 for 90 last night or whatever it was. Looking good out there, Trav. Looking good, buddy. They've got what they need, man, and they're gonna coast. And you know what? We're going to kind of coast through this bye week a little bit. We will see you guys next week. Who knows what we're going to talk about. But the Chiefs don't play a football game again for a couple weeks until they meet up with the San Francisco 49ers 2 weeks from Sunday. It'll be a little Sunday afternoon kickoff there in, middle of nowhere, South Bay. But I'm Ron Scott Hall. He says Dirkness, and this has been another episode of Amateur Hour.
Reeps.